Okay. Hare Krishna to all the students. We want everyone to switch on their cameras. It will be more good and interactive for me if you can switch on your cameras. Hmm. So we will start with Mangalacharan prayers. Why we do these prayers? Because in order to, understand spiritual knowledge, we need to have mercy. We need to have blessings of sadhus, saintly personalities, of all those devotees of Krishna who are self-realized, who have attained the lotus feet of the Lord. So by reciting Mangalacharan, we basically try to seek their prayers, seek their blessings so that we can understand this spiritual knowledge. So let us start. It's there on your screen. You can read. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णापादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च. Just a second. Hare Krishna. Mataji, the class is happening online. तो आपके बच्चे भी join कर सकते हैं. There is a link on the group. Okay? Okay. Welcome. Hari Bol. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So I welcome all of you to the class and I would request everyone to switch on their cameras. I cannot see all cameras on. Devanshi and Mithila, please switch on your cameras. So today we will start with Bhagavad Gita verse 2.47. It's a very famous verse and misunderstood one as well. So I will read one line of the verse and you will unmute yourself and repeat after me. Okay? कर्मण्यवाधिकारस्ते. Everyone unmute. Repeat. कर्मण्यवाधिकारस्ते
कर्म
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते
मा फलेषु कदाचन
मा फलेषु कदाचन
मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुर्
मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुर्
मा ते सङ्गोऽस्तव अकर्मणि.
मा संगोऽस्त्वया कर्मणे.
Okay, okay. So let's move ahead with translation. Translation says, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but one second. You have right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities and never be attached to not doing your duty. Now it seems like what are they saying? I mean, you can perform your duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Who is entitled then? Who can think about fruits? Who can think about the results? And how is it possible to do your work and not to expect a result out of it, right? It seems something not very natural to us. And then it says, never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities. It means activities which are done by me I am not even the cause of it. And never to be attached to not doing your duty. And then if I'm not the cause, I should not think that I should not do my duty. So, this is actually a very deep and important verse and is applicable in lives of each one of us, whether we are student, college going, we are professionals, we are doing any service in the temple, we are doing any social work. This is for all of us. So let's understand it deeply. What does it mean, right? So when they say that, what did they say? That you have right to perform your duty. Like you can do your duty, you can do studies, you can do job, whatever. But after doing studies, job, whatever you are doing, you should not expect the results. So what do they say? When you do your work or duty, you have to do your best efforts. And after doing your best, you need not expect the result the way you want, right? It's up to Lord Krishna, it's up to the Supreme Lord how he wants to reward us, right? For example, someone did a lot of hard work in the office to get promoted. There was some opportunity, by working extra hours, they can get some bonus or promotions, which we often see in the offices, right? So they did their complete hard work, their complete duty, they did all the efforts, and they were expecting a promotion, but promotion did not happen. So that person was expecting a particular result. The result he or she expected is the way he or she wanted it, right? But it did not happen. Then what will happen? It will lead to disappointment. But actually, the thing is why we should not be considering the result, because the way we expect the result to come, that may not be best for us. Krishna knows what is the best reward or result to be given. We do something and we expect the return in the way we want. But the return can be in some other ways, which may not be up to our expectations. And Krishna is very far sighted. Krishna knows that what result is to be given, what result is beneficial for us, and even in the future. We don't know that. We are short sighted. We cannot see, up to a longer distance. So that is the thing, that if you expect the result, the problem is you expect it the way you want it. And then it does not come that way, you will be disappointed. But we have to understand that Krishna is the best judge to decide what result, what reward is to be given. Whether it should be given or not, even that needs to be decided by Krishna. For example, the promotion case, someone did really hard work, but still they are not getting promotion. Instead, they are kicked out of that office. So that person may be bewildered that I did so much of hard work, and instead of getting promotion, I'm just kicked out of this office. What's wrong? Right? So here the thing is that probably that person, Krishna, might be providing a better opportunity to that person, or maybe that person may not know that what that promotion will bring later on in his or her life. Maybe that promotion will bring a lot of anxiety. He may go through some issues, mental health issues, or maybe that promotion will bring, later on a lot of infamy, some politics, some other kind of issues. So Krishna knows the best, right? We expect the results. That is not right. What is in our hands is doing the work. And after doing all our best efforts that we are supposed to do, we are supposed to, before leaving the result also onto Krishna, we are supposed to do best of our efforts. So we do best of our efforts, and then Krishna will decide what needs to be given or what need not to be given. So this way we learn the value of surrendering to the Supreme. We learn the value of surrendering to the will of the providence, right? So effort and our destiny, they go hand in hand. We make our efforts, but then it's up to Krishna what he wants to provide us. So let Krishna decide your result and surrender to his will. Do duty for the pleasure of the Lord. And when we do the duty, what should be the motivation? We should never think, oh, I'm not going to get the desirable result, may or may not be. Why should I do this duty? So we should not even get attached to the idea of not doing our duty, right? We have to do our duty. If you are a student, you are supposed to study. If somebody is married person, they are supposed to take care of household affairs. If somebody is a professional, he or she is supposed to take care of their professional needs. So everyone must do their duty to the fullest. But When we are doing duty, we are not doing it for with the fruitive mentality to get something in return. We are supposed to do the duty for the pleasure of the Lord, as a service to the Lord, right? And whatever we do, even if we study, we get some good marks, we must interact with Krishna, that Krishna, I did this, I did my best, now I'm going for exam, you take care of the rest. And after coming from exam, share with the Lord how was your exam. If you have deities at the home, talk to your deities. And even after, once you get the scorecard, report card, we show report card to our parents, right? Show report card to your supreme parent, Krishna and Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nitai, right? Share with them your feelings. How are you feeling? Even, and it's not easy to reach up to that state of not being attached to your results and complete surrender. It takes time, it takes practice and effort, right? So even if you have emotions that you failed or you passed, all those extreme emotions of joy and sorrow, try to pray to Krishna, try to share those emotions with the Lord understands everyone's heart, which sometimes other human beings fail to understand, right? So share with the Lord and show the Lord that I did it for your happiness. I did my best. You say in Bhagavad Gita, do your best. I did my best. I did as a service to the Lord because I am a student. This is my dharma. So as a student, our duty is to study. As a professional, my duty is to, perform nicely in my profession. As a householder, my duty is to perform nicely, do my household chores nicely, properly. So we have certain duties as per our age group. When you are young child, from 0 to 25 years, you are under the brahmacharya ashram. Your duty is to study the scriptures, the material things, and to earn, to become professional, to stand on your feet, to work on your career. After 25 to 50 is a time for Grihastha ashram. People get married. So at that time, their duty is to take care of household responsibilities, right? So our duties change with the age. So as per our age and caliber, we are supposed to deliver, we are supposed to perform, and those duties please Lord Shri Krishna. So when we are doing those duties up to the best and leave the result to the Krishna, that is the best way to perform any work in the world. And plus, it's very stress free. I need not take any stress. When I am attached to the results, I keep on expecting the results the way I want. And when I keep on expecting the results the way I want, it leads to a lot of anxiety, it leads to pressure, right? It leads to stress, worries. So we are free from all those worries once we surrender onto the feet of the lotus feet of the Lord, right? Then there are three considerations here. So, duty, if we talk about duties of work, there are three things: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. So, prescribed duties are the activities which are enjoined in terms of one's acquired mode of material nature, right? Whatever mode of nature we have mode of goodness, we have mode of passion, we have mode of ignorance. Capricious work means actions without sanction of authority, or inaction means not performing one's duty. So, prescribed duties are the duties basically which you are supposed to do as per your age and time. Like you are all children, so your duty right now is to study nicely, to learn the scriptural knowledge nicely, to learn the material knowledge nicely, in order to have a career in future. Capricious work is actions which are not up to the mark, which are not given by some spiritual authority, which we should not do. And then inaction means not doing anything. Like some people say that we won't do any action, so we will be free from the karma thing. That is also not the way. That is like escapist mentality. So Lord advised Arjun not to be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. So being not being attached to the result and performing your duty are two things we are supposed to take away from today's class. So, when Krishna, why Krishna speaks this verse? Because Arjun says to Krishna that I don't want to fight. Then Krishna says that you are a Kshatriya. So, Kshatriya is somebody who is, who has ability to rule, who is naturally into this position of, protecting others, right? The people who are in army, who are into kingdom, kingship. So such people are into the category of Kshatriya. And Brahmana are the people who are very tolerant, having Brahmanical nature. They can, live a simple life. But a Kshatriya doesn't have this natural nature. So Brahman, Kshatriya, then Vaishya is business class, and Shudra is a, someone who is into salary wala thing, right? So these four categories have their typical natures. So Arjun by birth is a Kshatriya. He has that nature. He cannot tolerate insults. He won't be able to, be like a Brahman, live like a Brahman, simply like a sadhu. But Arjun has a Kshatriya nature. So his duty is to protect citizens because he has that, warm blooded nature. So as per our nature, we are supposed to do our duties. Okay. So one who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. So when we are attached to some work, and we are attached to the result, we also think of ourselves as the cause. Like for example, someone got 100 on 100 in exam, he will think it's because of my effort I got 100, right? So what does that mean? He or she is thinking himself or herself as the cause of that particular result. But actually, we are not the cause of the results, right? We just did our best as per our ability, and then all the talents, intelligence was given to us by Krishna. Because of that only we were able to perform. So then we are free from the bondage, right? Once we think that we expect results, then we think that we are the cause of that action, and then we try to be enjoyer or sufferer of the result. So all these things are, connected. All the things that we do in the world have reactions, either in the form of enjoyment or in the form of a suffering. Someone did a good deed. If they are thinking that they are the cause and the good result is because of them, so they will be the enjoyer of the fruits of doing that good karma. And if they did something bad, you know then they will suffer for that bad karma, the fruits of that karma. So in order to be free from the bondage, we have to stop being attached to the result, and then we will be able to detach ourselves with this idea that I am the doer, I am the cause, and then we will not be into the suffering zone or the enjoying zone. So the bondage happens because we constantly keep on, thinking that I am the doer and I am the cause of the result, and the result should be the way I want. That is the reason for our bondage in this material world. Bondage as in taking birth again and again, right? In a human form or in any species, we keep on coming again and again to enjoy or suffer the fruits of our action, karma. Okay. So, as far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into three divisions. Now, prescribed duties can also be further divided like routine work, emergency work, desired activity. So, routine work performed as an obligation in terms of scriptural injunctions without the desire for results is in the action of goodness. Work with results, when we expect the results, they cause the bondage. Therefore, that work is not auspicious, and everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duty, but should act without attachment to the result. So we can claim our proprietorship that I did this work, but still, instead, we should act without attaching ourselves to the result. So such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. We did duties which are important in our life, and we did not, with the expectation of having some result. So Arjun was therefore advised by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty without attachment to the result. Don't be attached to the result. Fight as a matter of duty. His non participation in the battle is another side of attachment. When somebody says, I will not do this work, it's somewhat also an attachment because that person has a fear, right? That I will be the cause of the result. So again, the result thing is going on. So any attachment, whether it's positive or negative, is a cause for bondage. Whether we do the activity or not, whether we refrain from doing the activity due to fear of failure, or whether we do the activity with the reason of winning it, gaining something out of it. In both the cases, whether positive or negative, attachment is there. So it will lead to bondage. And inaction is also not good thing. It's sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the auspicious path of salvation for Arjun. Salvation means liberation, means not being part of this cycle of taking birth again and again. With this, we close the verse. Now we start with today's class. Before starting, I just have a question for all of you. Who is a Mahapurusha? What do you think? Who is a Mahapurush? Have you heard this term before? I can see a hand raise on the Aditya screen. Yes, please share. Who is Mahapurush? Aditya, unmute yourself. Who is Mahapurush?
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
See, do you know?
Who is a Mahapurusha?
Hare Krishna.
Acha, you are saying Krishna is a Mahapurusha. Okay, okay. I'm trying to understand the definition, like not a name of a person, but can you share like who do you call Mahapurusha? What will be the symptoms of that person that makes you say Mahapurusha, that he is a Mahapurusha? How does Mahapurusha looks or speaks or thinks? Okay, anyone else who wants to participate? And please switch on your cameras. I'm not going to come out of your screen and make comments or eat you up or judge you. Devanshi, please switch on your camera. Yes, please switch on your camera also.
And there's a problem.
Sorry, is this Satyabhama?
Devanshi.
Okay. Can you switch on your camera? You are not able to do so?
It's not working.
Okay. Okay, Mithila, would you like to share? Do you know, have you heard this word before, Mahapurusha?
I haven't heard the word before.
Okay, okay. Okay, so Mahapurusha is made of like two words, Maha and Purush. Okay. So Purush we know in Hindi is known as a man, and Maha means someone who is great. Like we say in the temple Mahaprasad. So same way we are saying here Mahapurusha. So a Mahapurusha, let's see who is Mahapurusha, a great man, right? So what are the qualities of great man? Who a great man is, how he looks like. Is he someone who is very successful, someone who is earning millions and millions, or someone who is very intelligent, or someone who is very good looking? Do we call such people as Mahapurusha? Are they great personalities? Yes or no? What do you think? Afyukta.
Probably not Mataji, because these are like material things that one has, so like probably not.
Yes, you are somewhat close to the answer of you that having good looks, money, possessions, intelligence, wealth. So this doesn't make someone great. These things doesn't make a person a great personality. Possession of material things doesn't make someone a great personality. Great personality would be someone, as we say, personality, it comes from character. So, a great character. So, what is the highest peak of the character that we refer as a perfect person? That we refer that person as a great person or a Mahapurusha. What will be there in their character? Let's explore the story of one Mahapurusha today. His name is Srila Jiva Goswami. So, Srila Jiva Goswami, sorry, my screen. There was some issue. Yes. Okay, so we will study today about Srila Jiva Goswami. So Srila Jiva Goswami, from the very day he was born, he displayed all the charming features of a Mahapurusha. Mahapurusha is also known in English as a divine person. He had lotus eyes, eyes. That doesn't mean lotus petals are there on his eyes. It means eyes which are, in a shape of a lotus petal. He was very beautiful. He had a high nose and a forehead. He had a broad chest and long arms and radiant golden body. So, someone who is a Mahapurusha has beautiful bodily features, definitely, but they are effulgent, that they are radiating it because of their spiritual advancement. So, it comes from within. It is not something which comes externally by doing some workout, having some serums or creams on the face. It comes internally from the way they enact, from the way they talk, from the way they conduct themselves, and from the way they are internally, spiritually absorbed. So, we will study about Srila Jiva Goswami today. So, let me share a bit about Goswamis. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you all have heard his name. So, there were six wonderful, devout followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and those six wonderful followers were six Goswamis. And out of those six Goswamis, the smallest one, the youngest one, is Srila Jiva Goswami. And Srila Jiva Goswami, from the very childhood, have shown the wonderful activities, have shown wonderful symptoms of being a Mahapurusha. So in his childhood, he made a deities of Krishna Balram. Usually we see children playing with video games as a child or playing with any soft toy, wanting to play some outdoor games, indoor games, right? There is nothing wrong about it. But the great personalities are great from the childhood. So he was an advanced soul. So he used to play with the deities of Krishna Balram. And he used to sleep with them by hugging them. And he always wanted to be with them. And his mother would narrate him such beautiful, nice stories. And he would stories of, scriptures, stories of devotees or the Lord. And he would ask such deep questions from his mother. And his mother would be surprised that how such a young child can ask such deep questions. So, expressing his pure devotion, he would often cry while worshipping them. He would also worship his deities that he had made of Krishna Balram. Usually, children make castles or, they make snowmans, but Srila Jiva Goswami would make the deities of Krishna Balram and would play, worship, sleep with them. And he would offer them clothes, chandan, flowers, ornaments, tasty sweets. He would take some and give Mahaprasad to his playmate. So he would, offer it to Lord, take it back and distribute it among his friends as a Mahaprasad. So from the beginning, he showed kindness to other jivas, other living entities. He was very kind to everyone. He was full of kind-heartedness. Jiva was so much attached to Krishna Balram, and that at bedtime he would embrace his deities and fall asleep. His parents thought he was only playing, but the villagers rejoiced to see Jiva's love for Krishna Balram. So all the villagers were highly happy, impressed, seeing such devotion in the heart of Jiva Goswami for the lordships. In school, he quickly mastered Sanskrit grammar, poetry, logic, philosophy. So, Srila Jiva Goswami was not only beautiful and devoted to the Lord, he was very intelligent also, right? Intelligent up to such an extent that he was expert in academic stuff, like anything, be it grammar, poetry, philosophy, anything. He was very intelligent and he was never proud of his intelligence. So Srimad Bhagavatam gave life to his life. Krishna Katha filled him with happiness. No one dared to speak to him about anything but Krishna. So he would not talk about anything else, like cars, magazines, buildings, snowfall outside. He wouldn't talk about mundane things. He would talk about Krishna. He would think about Krishna. He would play with Krishna Balram. What a life it must be. And when we study about such souls, we wonder what is their motivation? How come they are like this naturally? And how come this is so great? Why we are not able to experience it? So his childhood was not a normal childhood. It's an extraordinary childhood because it's a childhood of a Mahapurusha. He toured Navdeep Dham with Sri Nityanand Prabhu, studied Sanskrit in Benares, and then resided in Vrindavan. So he also lived in Vrindavan, and after serving Srila Rupa Goswami, they are his elders. by washing his feet. So he would wash the feet of different devotees of the Lord. This is humility, this is humbleness. So preparing his manuscripts, editing his books, he received Diksha. So Diksha is initiation, means when you get shelter of some guru, right? So our mother and father, they are our parents who gave us birth. But when we are in this world, we need guidance, we need spiritual direction. Although mother is a primary guru, but after that, for the spiritual guidance, spiritual direction, we need a guru, we need a spiritual master who can, with whom we can connect, who can inspire us to follow the path of devotion. So he accepted the Guru Nityanand Prabhu. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Gaur Nitai, Nitai was the Guru of Srila Jiva Goswami. So once again, once the aging Vaishnav Vallabhacharya, now we are discussing one incident. So aging Vaishnav Vallabhacharya gave critical advice to Srila Rupa Goswami on his writing. Although such younger than Venerable Vallabha, Sri Jiva brazenly spoke in the defense of his Guru. Sri Rupa Goswami scolded Sri Jiva, telling him to leave Vrindavan. So Vallabhacharya scolded Sri Rupa Goswami. One second. Oh, I think I misunderstood something. Sri Rupa Goswami gave initiation to Srila Jiva Goswami, not Nityanand Prabhu. I got confused due to the picture, maybe. So his guru was Sri Rupa Goswami. So Jiva Goswami, Vallabhacharya, he is also one of a great Vaishnav, a devotee of Lord Krishna. So he, Vallabhacharya was giving some critical advice. He was criticizing him probably for something in writing, basically. Whom? Sri Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami's disciple, Jiva Goswami, he could not bear it. He was not happy about it. That someone is, talking to my guru like this. So Jiva Goswami was scolded by Rupa Goswami because Jiva Goswami spoke badly, harshly to Vallabhacharya. So his guru, Jiva Goswami's guru, Rupa Goswami, was upset with him and he scolded him and he told him, leave Vrindavan. We don't want to see you here. So then, Jeev Goswami was really sad. He followed his spiritual master, his guru's order, living in an abandoned crocodile hole in Nandaghat, 45 minutes away from Bhajan Kutir of Sri Rup. So Rup Goswami, where he would do his chanting, his bhajan, 45 minutes away from that place, there is some hole of a crocodile. There he would live. Jeev Goswami would live. He not only lived there, he started fasting. He was not eating anything. He subsisted on wheat flour, which he begged. So he would, beg things from people, like wheat flour, powdered wheat. He would get it. He would mix it in with Yamuna water, and that he would take. That's it. He would not eat anything. Seeing his strict self-denial, Sanatan Goswami brought him back in the service of Sri Rupa Goswami. So then there was one more Goswami out of six, Sanatan Goswami. He brought Jiva Goswami in front of Rupa Goswami back. Okay. He is humility personified. So Rupa Goswami sent Jiva Goswami out of Vrindavan to teach what all he wrote in Updeshamrit. Vacho Vegam, Mansa Krodha Vegam, Jivva Vegam. At all times, a devotee should control his tongue, speech, and always remain humble. Trinadapi Sunichena. So basically, why did Rupa Goswami, his guru, send Jeev Goswami out of Vrindavan? Just to teach him that we should control our speech. We should be mindful of our speech. Okay. So after disappearance of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they just left this material world. Jiva Goswami became Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya to guide all Vaishnav in Navadvip. So then he also became a guru when his spiritual master left. He was preaching everywhere. He was sharing about Krishna consciousness in Navadvip, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri. Although he was undisputed leader, he always acted as a humble servant of all the jivas. So he would always act in such a way that he is teaching everybody. So someone who is teaching, he is also teaching from his behavior, from his conduct. He would act as a servant of all the living entity. So we have a definition of servant in this material world where we see there is a master and there is a servant, and master is insulting or exploiting servant, right? But in the spiritual world, it's full of bliss to be a servant. It's a wonderful position to be a servant. Whatever we see in this material world as bad or weird, the opposite of it is beautiful in spiritual world, in transcendental world. So being a servant, this position, being a servant of the servants, is a beautiful position we as a devotee aspire for in our lives in Krishna consciousness. Whereas in material world, everyone wants to be the master and the enjoyer and the owner, right? But in the spiritual world, enjoyer, master, owner is only Krishna and his pure devotees, and we are their servants. So this is the quality that we learn from Jiva Goswami. Humility means service, right? And when you want to serve, you are a servant. And being a servant, you are not going to be exploited in spiritual world. You are going to be more loved. You are going to be rewarded with Krishna Prem. So whenever Bengali Vaishnavas visited Vrindavan, he would lovingly receive them, arrange for prasadam, comfortable room. So you see how he is a humble servant. He would, whenever some Vaishnav is coming, so Srila Jiva Goswami would receive them, arrange prasad for them. They would, see that rooms are good, comfortable, and even guide them on Braj Mandal Parikrama. Okay. A super excellent Sanskrit scholar. He's wonderful scholar. What else he did? He would compose Sanskrit verses in his mind and write them down without changing anything. So he would, make verses in the mind and he would write them. Write them down means he used a metal stylus to permanently etch them on palm leaves. So he would write on palm leaves. And he was so intelligent. When he was in his school days, he would just listen and remember. This quality is known as being Shrutidhar. So Shrutidhar is someone who would just hear and remember. And in today's time, even something is written in notebook and we read it 10 times, we forget it. But Srila Jiva Goswami, he was a Shrutidhar. He would remember anything, everything, just by hearing once nicely. So this inscription method left no room for erasing, editing. So he would write on palm leaves with metal stylus, so he cannot erase, edit, rewrite, or do this editing part or running a spell check. Yet each and every verse or shloka was a priceless gem of perfect meter, rhythm, poetry, and meaning. So as we read about him, that he was a wonderful scholar, a wonderful poet, so he would write in such a perfect meter, tone, with rhythm, nice poetry. In today's time, we read about a lot of poets like John Keats and all, in English, in the world of English, and in India also, there are so many English poets, Hindi poets. So if we relish their poetry, just imagine the wonderful poetry skills of Srila Jiva Goswami, who is the Acharya and who is a scholar. How wonderful he would compose, right? So he was the greatest philosopher of all Indian history. Contemporary Sanskritists call him the greatest scholar who ever lived. So he was the greatest scholar who had ever lived. So Srila Jiva Goswami was youngest but most prolific writer among Goswamis. He wrote astounding 500,000 Sanskrit verses, about 25 books. So many, 500,000 Sanskrit verses. His books prove that Sri Chaitanya's philosophy gives the essence of Vedic wisdom and the perfection of religion. Gopal, Champu, Sat Sandarbhas, Hari Nam, Vyakarana are three of his most famous works. So these are some famous work of him. And about his samadhi, so in 1542, like today it's 2025, so like 500 years back, Sri Jiva Goswami established Sri Radha Damodar temple in Seva Kunj, Vrindavan, and his samadhi stands in the temple compound. This is the same Radha Damodar temple where Srila Prabhupada would sit and meditate and would write Bhagavatam first canto, and after seeking blessings of Goswamis whose samadhis are there in Vrindavan, then he moved to this establishing Krishna consciousness in the West. So his samadhi is there in Sri Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. Sri Jiva Goswami is Vilasa Manjari in Radha Damodar's Nritya Vrindavan Leela. So in spiritual world, lot of pastimes keep on happening of the Lord in Golok Vrindavan. And everyone, all these Mahapurushas are coming directly from spiritual world and taking a human body in this material world so that all of us can get the nectar of Krishna consciousness and can at least try to go back to home, Godhead. So Srila Jiva Goswami is one of the servants of gopis, manjaris in Vrindavan Leela, Golok Vrindavan Leela in spiritual world. Okay. So with this, we close today's class. I want all of you to share any two highlights that struck with you from the life of Srila Jiva Goswami. So all of you, I want you to unmute yourself and share it. I would also want Agastya and Brihati also to participate. Who would like to share first, or should I call out?
I would like to share first.
Please go ahead.
I like how Sri Jiva Goswami was very humble.
Yeah, he was really humble. Yes. Yes, Avyukt.
Yeah, Mataji, so first was like how he was always attached to Krishna from the beginning, like ever since he was a child, and like how he cared for every Vaishnava that came and like looked around to see if anything was short or like they needed anything.
Wonderful. Yes. Mithila.
I like that as like even from from childhood he was very like smart, and also he would always ask his mom very like deep and meaningful questions.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. Who else? Aditya.
He was a great devotee and loves Krishna.
Yes. Yes. Right. Wonderfully said. Okay. Who else is left? Yes.
He was really focused.
Yes, he was focused and he would hear whatever he would hear, he would remember that. So I'm happy you heard and relished appreciation and the glories of Srila Jiva Goswami. So we can watch a video today with together, on Srila Jiva Goswami. So let me share my screen now.